Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of this Wordle project that we are trying to have. And here the project that we are working on is the Wordle project, and since I explained the Wordle project in my video 1, part 1 of my video, I'm not going to explain it one more time. So here in previous video we successfully managed to install Laravel and customize it, and here in this video, before we go on, I'm going to first explain Laravel project, how this looks, and for example, whenever you start learning a new framework or people always want to know every single thing about that framework, or for example, they want to know what this app folder exactly is created for. What does this file exactly do? What does this folder exactly do? What does this folder HTTP? So, and my advice is, for now, for start, don't try to learn every single thing because it's obviously very hard. So for a start, we are going to learn the Laravel framework fragment by fragment, and wherever that we use. For example, we go ahead and inside database migration, we say these files are created for this purpose, and this file is for this purpose, and things like that. So you are going to learn that step by step and fragment by fragment. So this is it. So the first fragment that I am going to explain is the database migrations folder. So, for example, when we are working on a project, we might work as a team or things like that, and we always want to, for example, if I make a change in database, for example, add a new column to some table, my other friends or everyone else should add that too. So that migration is a good way to keep track of changes to database, and for example, and use that using migration. For example, we can create and modify migration. In fact, for example, if we take a look at this migration file, it's obviously it says that it creates users table, and it says that go ahead and create this users table, and it should have a field called name and a email and things like that. Go ahead and create another table called the password reset token, and create another table. So, but the point is, each migration has a up method and a down method. Up method is where we try to migrate and move forward, but sometimes we make a mistake and we want to move backward and undo the things that we did, and we write that on down. So down actually undoes everything that happens in up method. For example, if in up method we create a new table, so we need to drop it in down. If we add a new column, we need to drop that column. So this is it. If we rename it from X to Y, for example, rename a column from X to Y in up, we need to rename it back from Y to X in down. So down performs the down for that. For example, if we run, for example, PHP artisan migrate, for example, PHP artisan migrate, it goes ahead and runs every single migration that are in these migrations tables. So if I run it, well, since I have already ran PHP artisan migrate previously, so it obviously is going to tell me that nothing to migrate. And also, there's something that I need to mention. I've already ran the server using PHP artisan serve -- port command, and the project is running on localhost on port 8400. And and this is open, and have that in mind that you need to run this PHP artisan serve in order to run your project. So, and when I ran PHP artisan migrate, it said that info nothing to migrate. So because we previously migrated everything. But how Laravel knows that it has migrated everything? If we take a look at database, you can see there's a table called migrations, and this migrations table is something that is used by Laravel by default. For example, when Laravel migrates a file, it writes down the name of the file. For example, it says that I have already ran this and this and this. So it knows that. So Laravel keeps track of the changes in migration from migrations table. So this is how he knows. For example, if we run PHP artisan migrate rollback, it calls, so PHP artisan migrate calls the up method of every single file, and PHP artisan migrate rollback calls the down method of every single file, and it rolls back everything that it has already executed. For example, if we create a new migration file, for example, let's create a new migration file here for test. For example, PHP artisan make migration. So this is the way that we can create a new migration file. PHP artisan make migration, and the name of the file for you that you want. Test, for example, is the name of my migration. It's just one I want to create a test, for example. And there are two ways when you create a migration. Sometimes you want to create a new table, and sometimes you want to modify changes. For example, if we want to change things, we can actually say, for example, dash dash table equals to, for example, something, the table that we want to modify, and it creates something from initiate. For example, if I say dash dash create, for example, dash dash create equals to, for example, people, it means I'm going to create a table called people, and it goes ahead and creates something by default for us. So this is, it goes ahead and so it says, okay, you want to create people. It has an ID. It should have a timestamps table, and timestamps actually creates two columns, created at and updated at, and Laravel automatically keeps track of the created and updated at of items, and it goes ahead and, for example, but if we rather than providing create, for example, to example 2, say, for example, table equals to people and something like that, it means we are going to modify that table, and it doesn't create those things for us. So by default, we can create something in that things in those migration files that we have. But okay, let's come back to the other thing that we were talking about. If I run PHP artisan migrate rollback, it goes ahead and calls the down method of every single file that it has already ran the migration for. So if I run PHP artisan migrate rollback, the rollback only will be called for these 3 items because these 3 are migrated. These 2 are not migrated yet. So if I run the PHP artisan migrate rollback, the down method for all of these will be called, obviously. And if I run PHP artisan migrate alone with nothing inside that, so in this case, it goes ahead and runs these 2 because these 2 were not run previously. And it goes ahead and creates those table that we wanted. It has an ID and timestamp. And if you come back here, hit refresh, inside Wordle, we can see that we have a table called people, and it has an ID and a created at, and if you take a look at the structure, if you want to, it has an ID and a created at and a updated at, which are timestamps. Let's increase the zoom for those who are using mobile devices and devices with smaller screens so they can read better. So this is it. If I run PHP artisan migrate roll back, it rolls back everything that it has already run. PHP artisan migrate rollback. And if we hit refresh, because I thought that it's gonna roll back the users tables and things like that, but if you PHP artisan migrate rollback again, you can see, so okay, previously when we ran PHP artisan migrate rollback, it rolled back every single thing. Okay, and if we wanted to control that, we could provide a step argument and say step equals 1 or step equals 2 and a step. But now the default in Laravel 11, it seems to it's been changed. In Laravel 11, the default step is 1. So when we run the PHP artisan migrate rollback, it only rolls back 1 step. And what do we mean by step? If we take a look at the migrations table, rather than migration, there's something called batch. For example, let's clean these 2 again. Let's delete these 2 files again. Move to recycle bin and say PHP artisan migrate again. Sorry. Okay. And do you remember that a command that I used in previous session, PHP artisan migrate fresh. What does this migrate fresh means? This means go ahead and clean everything in database and run the migrations again. So it cleans everything and then runs the migration. So this is it. It cleaned everything. And if we take a look at this now, you can see the batch number for all of them is now 1. So they are considered inside one step. If you migrate rollback, this is a one step for the migrate rollback. And imagine that we create another migrate path. And there's something that I need to say, that I have set a shortcut command for PHP Artisan. Since I use this PHP Artisan a lot, I have already set a shortcut command, and you can search shortcut commands for your operating system, whether if it's Linux or Mac OS or Windows. I can set PA, and PA means PHP Artisan. So let's use PHP Artisan make migration. Okay, dash create people. So let's imagine that I'm to okay, I'm going to imagine that I'm going to create a table called people, and as you can see, oh, I forgot to provide a name, and it asks us what should the name of the migration be. So it's good that it asks us what the name of the. So we can say create people table. So and now it creates the name is create people table, and we can add some columns if you want to. But if you want to know the list of the column types, all the MySQL column types, you can search Laravel migrations. And inside Laravel migrations, there's a documentation where you can see that all the possible column types that we have. For example, here it is. It says enum, dates, JSON, text, string, set, UID, and all the possible things for for MySQL, and some extra things that we will see. So this is the documentation for you if you want to check all the possible values that you can have. So. But now, if I run PHP Artisan migrate again, PA migrate again, let's say PA migrate, it goes ahead and migrates those things that it hasn't already migrated, and sure enough, the batch number for this one should be 2. Okay, and sure enough, again, if we come back here and make another migration file, for example, let's use table equals people, and call it, for example, test1. Let's create another one and call it test2. So now we created 2 other migration files, although we can add so many things if you want to, if we add some logics. But the point is, I want to prove a point here and write PA migrate again and run migrations again. And sure enough, again, if we come back here and take a look at migrations table, it says the batch number 3. Okay, previously in previous Laravel version, if you ran PHP Artisan migrate roll back, PHP Artisan migrate, okay, roll back, it rolled back everything. For example, all the tables, this one, all 6 of them. But if you didn't want it to roll back everything, we could provide something called -- a step, and say a step is equal 1, or a step equals 2, or a step equal 3. But now it seems that Laravel has changed it, and the default is on step 1. So if we now ran the rollback, only these 2, test1 and test2, will be rolled back. PHP Artisan migrate rollback. You can see only test1 and test2 is now rolled back. Hit refresh. And again, if we run it again, only this one will be. But we can actually specify a step and say -- step equals 2. And if we say step equals 2, we can say that the only jobs and people is now created. Refresh. Yeah. But again, it didn't consider them. Okay. It seems it acts very strange. I thought it's from the batch number when we specify 2. Maybe this is a step thing is acting very strangely. Maybe it's file by file. Maybe. But if it was file by file, so why did it run test1 and test2 together when we ran the rollback again? Anyway, I think a step is the files. And there's another thing called batch, for example. Yeah, I think there's another thing called batch. Batch equals, for example, 1. Yeah, I think there's another thing called batch, and step is for the files. Yes, 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 this was it. Now I remember correctly. Step was for the file, and we had something batch. In order to make sure, let's run php migrate again fresh, migrate again fresh to clean everything, and run migrations again. And let's say batch equals, for example, 1. But yeah, everything. But this time, for the second time, since we ran migration, the batch was all of them was the same. You can see the batch number of all of them is the same since we ran them all together. So let's create another one. Pa make. Let's use up arrow to go to the other things, and let's create a test. For example, 10. Test 10. Create another test 10 and run migration again, php artisan migrate. Okay, in order to make sure that batch thing is correct. So now if we hit refresh, you can see that this is a batch. If we run the batch equals 1, so when I said batch equals 1, it deleted everything with a batch number of 1. So that's the difference between a step. So a step is the last file, and it's file by file. So let's run the migration again, php artisan migrate fresh. And now we can say php migrate, for example, roll back, and say dash dash step equals to, for example, if you hit refresh, you can see all of them are now migrated. If you say, for example, a dash dash step 2, what I expect is to roll back these 2. Dash dash step equals 2. These 2 are now rolled back. And for the batch, we can just specify the batch number, and all of the for the batch. I thought the batch equals 1. It means only the one last batch, or batch 2 means only 2 last batches, but no, it means batch 1. It means, oh, go ahead and roll back everything with a batch of 1 and things like that. So okay, now we know everything about almost everything about migrations, and we're good to go. We can clean all of these migrations files, because I wanted them for just explain migrations to increase your knowledge in migrations. And now we know much about migrations, and let's run php artisan migrate fresh again, because we made some changes in there. Php artisan migrate fresh, and now everything is great, and everything is good to go. So this is the migrations table that we have, and we can see factories, seeders, and things like. But the most important thing that we have, other than these migrations, are 2 other folders. For example, one folder is app, where there are so many things happening there. And one more important thing is we can go inside our routes, and there's a file called web.php for all our web routes. And you can see that this is, let's close this one, and you can see this is where everything happens. For example, Laravel is saying that if someone send a GET request to the root of our project, for example, it means this is the root of our project without anything, do these things. If someone hit the GET request to the dashboard, for example, it means get request to the dashboard, this address, dashboard, you need to render this inertia page. And these things mean if someone hit get request to this profile address, for example, you need to call the edit method of the profile controller. If we take a look at profile controller, this is a file, and it calls the edit method on that thing. And all of them has a name, which we can use this name, and this name is very good. For example, the name of this is profile edit, and we can see in future how we can use this name. And this name is very good, because if we somehow decide to change the URL of our website, to change the website, we do not need to change a lot of our codes, because we are using the name rather than URL. And we will see this name, how this name thing can help us. So this is where everything happens. So for example, if you take a look at this code, it says go ahead and use inertia to render a welcome view.js. And if you take a look at our views, you can see inside our views folder, so we have app folder, and there's a resources views, and inside this views there are some blade files, and I'm going to explain those blade files. But also inside JS, and there's pages, and inside pages, this is, so it starts from pages. And how it starts from pages, this is where everything is happening, this create inertial app happening. So this is the address that is telling it from dots, pages, and the name of the file view. So that's why when we, for example, here say return inertial render and the name of the file is welcome. So of course it goes ahead and looks for the file inside pages folder. So that's why looks inside pages folder. You can see this is the config here. So you can see this is welcome.vue, and this is the file that is being rendered here. This is the file that is rendered now here. So, and this is our welcome.vue, of course, and it is sending some arguments as prop for this. For example, can log, because we can actually go ahead and modify some changes and say we only want the login, and we don't want the register section. If you take a look, we have a register and login. We can customize that. We say we want none of them, or we can say we can only want login, and it's sending some booleans to this. So these PHP variables here, they could be some PHP variables as well. They will then be converted to JavaScript variables, and then here you can see define props here. It says we have a can login, which is a boolean. We have a can register, which is a boolean. We have Laravel version, PHP version. These are the props for this view file, and these will be passed to this view file, and now we have access to these as our variables. And we can see we can type in this variable vf can login here, and things like that. But since we are not familiar, some of you may not be familiar with VueJS, it might look strange for you a little bit at the start, but don't worry, we are going to explain everything. So this is it. But this way is not actually optimum, because this is temporary. Laravel has written it this way. The best way is this, actually, to say go ahead and call some method from some controller. This is the best way for it. And also this is not good as well, because you can see, since they are temporary, something that Laravel knows that we are going to change for sure. So that's why it has written it this way with an anonymous function. So rather than anonymous function, this is the way that we are going to write our pass. So here we are going to this login and register thing that we have here. Let's and you can see there's something called required the auth.php, and this auth.php is also required, and there are some routes for login, register, forgot password, and things like that. If you go ahead and comment this temporary and come back here, hit refresh, you can see that login and register is gone, because since we commented this part, we no longer have a route called login, and we no longer have a route called registered. And these are the name of those things that we have. You can see inside auth, we had previously something called login. You can see name, login. Sorry, here, let's control F here, login. You can see the name of this is login here, and we have something called register. So since we commented this part, and now the routes are no longer defined, so we no longer have these login and register route. And as you can see inside our welcome.php, there's a vf. This vf looks like an if, you can see, but now don't worry, we are going to explain everything about Vue.js. But you might guess that it says if we had that, you can go ahead and show dashboard. If route to login, we had route to login, go ahead and show that login page and things like that. There are some logic that now it causes we no longer see that. So okay, I'm going to clean everything inside this welcome thing that we have. So I'm going to clean everything inside this template. So we can say hello world here for start, and we are going to clean everything for now, for temporary, and here. Okay, and let's comment this thing out for now. And we are going to explain more about Vue components but for now, since we do not have so many things, so we no longer are going to pass these things here. I am going to create a controller called landing controller. So we saw actually, so let's come here inside our terminal here. So let's use terminal thing that we had. Okay, rather than creating a new terminal here, I am going to Yes, it's already been ran, so delete this, delete this. So here, we saw something called PHP artisan make, okay, previously. Sorry, here, let's right. PHP artisan make, we saw migration was one of them, right? Another thing that we are going to create, let's do this one because I don't want to type so bottom. So I think this is much better. So PHP artisan make migration, we saw that it creates a migration file, but there's something else, PHP artisan make controller. We are going to create a new controller. PHP artisan make controller, I'm going to call that landing controller. When I hit enter, we can see that a new file is now created inside our app, HTTP controllers, and there's something called landing controller, and it's empty and there's nothing inside it for now. I'm going to create a method called public, let's say public function, for example, welcome. Okay, welcome. And here inside this welcome, I'm going to say, write this down like this. Rather than this, I'm going to say, go ahead and call, use landing controller, and you are going to write down the class name, and you are going to call the, for example, welcome method. But there's something, we haven't used this landing controller. So, and where is this landing controller is located? Well, here you can say use app HTTP controllers and a landing controller. So when we can use this landing controller. Now that we have used this landing controller, we can say go ahead and call the welcome class. And in order to make sure everything is right, we can say here echo, for example, hello world with 3 things here. So hit refresh. And sure enough, we must see that hello world if we didn't cancel. So it says landing controller does not exist. So we have a problem here. So we didn't hit Control S, I think, in this. I didn't save this. Yeah, I didn't save this. So that was the problem. So we see this echo hello world thing that we had. And also there's a function called dd, which means dump and die. And this dump and die is something that we are going to use a lot in our Laravel, this dump and die thing that we have. So let's remove the semicolon there and hit refresh, and you can see dump and die. This is how dump and die looks. And let's increase the zoom again for those who are using smaller screen devices like mobile devices and things like that. So now rather than dump and die or echoing hello world, we need to render and return a view component. And we are going to explain how we can create a view component, but we are going to use inertia in order to do that. So we can use the inertia thing that we have. So let's use the inertia. And now that we have access to inertia, we can say inertia render a file. And the file that we want to render, we should write down the path. For example, it could be welcome, or it could be profile/edit. So depending on the route that I'm going to return only the welcome thing that we have. Welcome. So this is the thing that you are going to return. And also, if we wanted to pass some variables from PHP to front end, for example, let's say test equals to hello alone, and you can see, and this is the test. And we can pass the test like this. We can say, and this like an array. We can say the variable that you are going to use is called test, and this is test. So test is actually the name that we are going to use in our front end. We can use whatever that we want, anything that we want. It doesn't necessarily have to be test, just like the variable name here, but it's more convenient to use the test that we want. So this way we can actually go here, and inside the welcome we need to use define props, and inside define props we need to say that, hey, we have something called test, we have a prop called test, and this test actually is the type of this test is actually, for example, a string. And we can have default values and things like that. We will see much more about this define prop thing that we have. Okay, here we can say hello, and also, so now we are sending some variable test name here, and the variable test is hello. So we can say, for example, a span tag, say variable is, and the variable is, we can use a b tag here. And in order to echo something in Vue component, echo, for example, a variable, we use this sign, and we can say use the echo the test variable that we have. So come back here, hit refresh, and let's hit F12. If we have an error or something, we must see that error inside this console thing that we have. But we do not have any error. But I think we forgot to return. Yes, we forgot to return this. We must say return inertia render. Well, it rendered it, but we didn't return anything. So hit Control 0 and hit. But there's something. Well, we changed this welcome.view. Yes, we changed a lot about it, and also we changed things like that. But we see that there is no change. Why? Well, the reason is when we write something in VueJS and things like that, it will be compiled to JavaScript, and so something that compiles our code. Well, our code is not compiled yet. We have ran PHP Artisan migrate, PHP Artisan serve, and the project is running on port 8400. But there's something also that we need to run: npm run build, in order to compile everything, and so that we can see the changes. But the problem is, if we run npm run build every time that we make a change, it's gonna be a lot of pain, right? So there's something else called npm run dev, and it automatically detects changes, and it goes ahead and applies changes and refreshes the page. But now if I run npm run dev, we are going to face a problem probably, because let's see if we have npm modules folders right now. Now, as you can see, there's a folder called node modules, and we have already installed everything in node modules. But if for any reason you do not have this node modules things that we have, you need to run npm install in order to install all those things that inside our packages. So now if I run npm run dev, and we must see, and you can see now it says everything is okay, and it's listening to changes that we have. So if you come here, let's refresh the page that we have on port 8400 and hit F12, because if you have an error or something, it tells us. And you can see now variable is hello, the variable that we send. So now the changes are being applied here, and we can pass in everything that we want. So this is it. This is an introduction to Laravel. So now you have an understanding of how Laravel works, how we can actually render a page, and we will see more about sending AJAX requests and POST requests, and how we can use Axios and what is Axios actually, and a lot of other stuff. But for now, we can see how we can actually create a new page, and this is how we can create a new page and pass in variables if we want to. Okay, so since I don't want my videos to get too long, I want them not to pass more than 1 hour. They be around 40 minutes. For the first video, it was very short because it was an introduction, of course. But I think this is enough for this video that we have. And I think in this video you have a good understanding now from how Laravel actually works, and we are going to increase our knowledge and see more about Laravel, how we can use Laravel and Vue.js more and more. So that's it. That's enough for this session, and we will see you in the next session, and we will finally come up and create and have this project. And also I'm going to commit everything in this session, for example, and I'm going to write down part 2 or session 2. What did I wrote? Because I already committed something. So let's see. There's a command called git log dash dash. For example, we can pass in dash dash one line to see that as one line and see all the previous commits that we have. You can see, yeah, I have a commit called part 1. So, and I'm going to create another commit called part 2, so that you can navigate between various commits and see the project as if it was in part 2 or part 1 and things like that. So I can commit it, and now inside GitHub you can change, navigate through the various commits, and it's easier for you to keep track. Okay, that's enough for this session. Hope to see you in the next one.